John Bones Jones versus Stipe Miocic. The Battle of the Goats goes down next weekend, and I cannot wait for this matchup. This fight has been like a few years in the making now. It should have happened in 2022 in like a non-title fight or maybe an interim title fight when Ngannou was in the UFC and champion. Didn't happen. It should have happened at UFC 285 instead of Gon versus Jones. I don't know why Gon got the fight and not Stipe. It was in talks to happen at UFC 290, and then it was booked for UFC 295 in the Garden last year. Bones delays the fight a year by getting injured. Now here we are. We are one weekend away. I don't think John is going to screw this up. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm looking forward to this matchup. I know not many people are, but I mean, it's a legend versus legend bout. And I mean, yeah, I know Stipe doesn't really deserve the title shot, but this is like a legacy fight for both guys, so can't complain. Tom will get his shot in the end. I just want to give my breakdown and prediction for this fight, along with also Oliveira Chandler, and I'll quickly like go over some of the fights too on this main card. I mean, this card is kind of mid. I mean, not kind of. It's very mid. I mean, the prelims suck. The main card isn't really all that. And I mean, for MSG, this is pretty bad. Usually MSG cards are supposed to be special, but lately the UFC's been like putting no effort into these Madison Square Garden cards. I don't know why. But before I get into like the GOAT versus GOAT fight, let's just start with the mid-off between Chris Weidman and Eryk Anders. Not excited for this fight at all. I mean, Chris Weidman is a ghost at this point. He's like, what, 40 years old? I mean, congrats. He won his last fight against Bruno Silva by like poking him in the eye 1,000 times. But before that, he was like on a losing streak. And then his last win before Bruno Silva was against Omari Akhmedov, which was like 4 years apart from his recent win. And he didn't look good in that fight. And where is Akhmedov now? But he's taking on Eryk Anders, who I don't know. Honestly, like Eryk Anders is not he's not a young up and comer. You know what I mean? So it makes it hard for me to look at this matchup and be like, oh my gosh, because Chris Weidman is washed up, he's gonna lose. Like he, even though he eye poked the crap out of Bruno Silva, outside of the eye pokes, he was looking kind of good. And maybe it's because you saw it as out of the picture. Maybe Weidman was allowed to juice up again a little bit. Maybe that's why he looked a little bit rejuvenated in that fight. But I feel like this is the level of competition that Weidman is going to beat in the UFC. He'll always beat the unranked of the middleweight division, but he's not going to beat anyone who's like in the rankings. He's not going to beat any serious up and comer or like anyone who has any potential in the division. Weidman's not beating, but someone like Eryk Anders, he's 37 years old. Eryk Anders isn't a very good fighter. I mean, he got subbed by Muniz, who's not very good. He lost to Marc-Andre Barriou, who we just saw it happen in his last fight, and Marc-Andre ain't really good. So, I don't know. And even Machida was able to beat him. So, I'm just going to say Weidman will probably beat Eryk. No, I'm going to say he will beat Eryk by a close decision. I feel like there might be some New York bias with this matchup. Like the New York judges might favor Chris Weidman in a very close fight. Like I don't think Weidman's going to look good while winning, but I think he'll probably manage to win. I mean, I won't be surprised if Eryk wins because I know Weidman does have like bad luck when it comes to fights in MSG, but Weidman was fighting killers, you know, when he was fighting in MSG, like Jacare, closer to his prime, not really in his prime, but still, Yoel Romero, you know what I mean? And even though this other fight that he lost in New York wasn't in New York, or it wasn't in MSG, it was in like, I think, Barclays Center, against Mousasi. It was Mousasi in his prime. These are guys that were beating him, so I don't know. Weidman should be in this. He should be okay in this fight, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did manage to lose. But enough of this fight. Enough of these bums. It's crazy. Weidman's a former champ, and I'm calling him a bum because he is at this point. Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. One of the easiest fights to predict on this card, honestly. I mean, does anyone really think Paul has a chance? He got out grappled by Brennan Allen. He got out wrestled in that fight and he got submitted with ease. And I don't think Paul Craig really has anything for Bo Nickal. He doesn't. He can't defend the takedowns. And if he ends up on his back, or when he ends up on his back, it's really a question of can he get like a fluke sub like he did against Jamal Hill or Ankalaev, which I don't think so. I think Bo Nickal's too good to let that happen to him. I don't think he's going to allow a jiu-jitsu merchant like Paul Craig to sub him from off his back. So I think he'll just easily get his takedowns, maul Paul Craig, and he'll probably sub Paul Craig, what's his face, Brennan Allen did. And he'll just remain undefeated. He's just there to make Bo Nickal look good, honestly. And then Karine Silva versus Viviane Araujo. Um, I think Karine Silva's gonna win this. Vivi Araujo isn't very good in the women's flyweight division. She's literally just there to make these up and comers at flyweight look good. Like she was there to build Grasso up, to propel her forward in the division, and then Grasso went on to fight for the belt and become a champion. She was there to make Rebus look good somehow, and Rebus has no ceiling in this division. And then who else can I think of? Oh yeah, Natalia Silva, the next biggest thing in the division. She was there to make her look good, to get her into like the top five of this division. And I think it's just going to be the same case against Karine Silva. Karine Silva's on a 19 fight win streak, or sorry, not 19, 9 fight win streak. She's a killer with her grappling. 8 wins by sub, 9 wins by TKO. I don't think she's gonna like TKO Vivi Araujo. I mean, she could with ground and pound, but I see her just dominating Viviane with her grappling, blanketing her on the ground, and somewhere within these 3 rounds finding a submission. That's my pick, Karine Silva. And then moving on now to the co-main event of the evening. Iron Michael Chandler versus Charles do Bronx Oliveira. The rematch, I'm very excited about this rematch. It's going to be a very explosive first round. I mean, 2 of the fastest starters in lightweight history. Their last fight was a banger. Michael Chandler was winning that fight until he wasn't, until he got knocked out in the second round. That's the name of the game. It's a game of inches. You could be winning, but one error can cost you an entire fight, and that's what happened to Michael Chandler. But even though he was winning till he wasn't, I think Chandler might be cooked in this rematch. And winning fights till you weren't, they don't matter as much in men's MMA as they do in women's MMA. Like women's MMA, you could be winning a fight and then you could get caught and then you could just come back and win the rematch. Men's MMA, it doesn't work the same. And Michael Chandler, where has he been in the last 2 years? Whereas Oliveira has been more active since Chandler's last fight against Dustin Poirier in 2022. Charles Oliveira is still in his prime. He's still progressing. Michael Chandler is now 38 years old. He's going to be 40 like very soon, like by the year 2026. I know next year, 2025, he's going to be like, 40 years old, or sorry, 39, but still. He's in a weight class where age matters, okay? Age matters in these smaller divisions. If this was like heavyweight, light heavyweight, Chandler's inactivity and him being nearly 40 would matter a lot less. But it's in the lightweight division where mileage, all that matters, okay? Because in these lower weight classes, you need to have your speed, you need to have your explosiveness or strength, everything. And I don't think Chandler's going to be anywhere near as good as he was when they first fought. When they first fought and Chandler had him beat in the first round. Chandler, even though 35 years old is old for lightweight, he was 35 at the time, the same age Oliveira is now. That was Chandler closer to his prime, at the top of his game, where he was coming off a knockout win against Dan Hooker in his UFC debut. And I picked him to beat Charles Oliveira in that first fight, but yeah, I can't pick him to win this fight. I just can't. I mean, there's always a chance that Michael Chandler could knock Oliveira out. He's got the power to, he's got the explosiveness to. But Oliveira just has more ways he can win this fight. He also has the threat of knocking out Chandler. He did it before. But overall, I feel like he's got a technical advantage on the feet. He's got more versatility to his striking. He's got elbows, kicks. He's more tighter in the pocket with his boxing. He's better with his counters. His leg kicks are good. And he has an advantage with the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. If the fight hits the mat, I mean, early on, he won't sub a fresh Michael Chandler. But as the fight goes, the higher the chances will increase for Oliveira to get a sub. I mean, Dustin submitted him as the fight went on, as Chandler started to fade. And Oliveira has the option of ending it early or ending it in the late rounds, where I feel like Chandler, if he's going to win, it has to be a first round knockout. Because unless you're old man Tony, Chandler's not beating you past the first round. History shows he always wins round one, and then his success starts to dwindle away as the fight goes on. Like against Oliveira in the first fight, like against Gaethje, even Poirier. He was winning round one until he got caught towards the end. He did dominate round two, but didn't hurt Dustin, and then got finished in round three. He was falling apart. And another thing with Chandler, it's like he just doesn't have the fight IQ or the discipline to keep up that sustained success against Oliveira for the long duration of the fight. And this is a 5-round fight. And I think Oliveira's got way better cardio. And Oliveira, in his last fight against Arman Tsarukyan, he didn't look the greatest, but I feel like Arman is better than Chandler, and he had the skills to shut down Oliveira. But Oliveira kind of ran out of time in that fight against Tsarukyan. If that's a 5-round fight, I think Oliveira wins that if he has more time on the clock. Oliveira's got more time on the clock in this fight against Chandler. Now, I don't think this fight's going to go past round 3, but if it does go in those rounds, who is going to be the fresher fighter? Who's going to be more efficient? I don't think it's going to be Michael Chandler. Usually if Chandler hits those late rounds, he gets less comfortable on the feet, as shown against Brett Primus, and he becomes like a boring wrestler. And he's not going to be able to take that blanket wrestler approach against Oliveira. I mean, he could, but when he gets tired, it's going to be easier for Oliveira to find a submission from off his back. So yeah, I got to go with Oliveira based off the fact that he's got more ways to win. He could end it early, or he could end it late. He could finish him on the feet. He could finish him on the ground. And he's younger. He's been more active. And I feel like Oliveira coming back in this fight is going to have a chip on his shoulder because of how the last fight with Tsarukyan went. His confidence is going to be at an all-time high, knowing that he already has a win against Iron Michael Chandler. And again, activity, age, all that matters in this fight. And Chandler might come back rusty. And honestly, I won't be surprised if Oliveira wins this fight easier than he won the first fight. I could see him dominating Chandler and winning by first round knockout. Chandler could hurt him early, but I feel like the mistake Oliveira made in that first fight was he took a step back. He made way for Chandler. He gave Chandler space to explode forward and tag him. But I feel like if Oliveira can stay in his face and control the center of the octagon, it's not going to give Chandler room to explode and catch him like that. Oliveira's defense, I believe, has also improved since that fight. He's got a very good, effective Muay Thai shell. So I could see in this first round, I could see him like just keeping a high guard, Chandler trying to explode, but the shots hitting the arm, and Oliveira using that like teep kick to keep Chandler on his heels, to keep him from closing the distance, chopping at the calves, and just kind of staying safe, maybe attempting some takedowns against Chandler. Even if he doesn't get them, it's going to force Chandler to work. He might, initiate the clinch against Michael and knee him to the body to slow him down. And then maybe towards the end of the round, I could see him landing a counter hook on Chandler once again, finding another finish towards the end of round 1, maybe club and sub, or maybe another TKO. It could be in the first, or it could be in the second. This could be an easy first round knockout for Oliveira, or this could be a dragged out war where in the end, Oliveira's eventually going to get him and come out on top. So yeah, I'm favoring Do Bronx to win this fight. against Iron Michael Chandler. But I'm rooting for Chandler. I feel like he needs this win because, I mean, he took these 2 years off waiting for Conor. He deserved that fight as a legend of the game and didn't get it. So it would just suck for him to have waited for Conor for nothing, just to come back all these years to lose to Oliveira again. I feel like another loss to Oliveira would set him back so much. I feel like that would really hurt his career. But yeah, I don't see Chandler winning. These circumstances just do not favor Michael Chandler. I'm not underestimating him, but I think Oliveira is just a better, seasoned, more skillful fighter. I think he's going to make the adjustments going into the rematch, whereas Chandler, you can't count on him to not make the same mistakes that he made in the first fight because Chandler's fight IQ is an issue. He makes the same mistakes every single fight. So he's probably going to forget that I can't drop my hands in this fight. He'll probably end up dropping his hands when he shouldn't. And Oliveira is going to be the one who keeps his hands up. And he might be the one who lands first and lands cleaner and gets the finish. So we'll see. It should be a good fight. But my money is on Do Bronx this time. But we'll see. Definitely one of the best fights of the card. I mean, if Chandler wins, does he get a title shot? It's possible. A lot could happen for him if he wins this fight. Maybe there's a BMF title fight waiting for him against Holloway. We'll see. But now moving on to the main event of the evening. Jon Bones Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Man, Stipe Miocic has not fought in like a long time. He's coming off a brutal second round knockout loss against Francis Ngannou. And now he's coming back to take on the GOAT of the sport in Jon Jones after all this time out. And the sad thing is about this matchup, I think Stipe actually does have the tools to give Jon Jones stylistic trouble. Like Miocic, he's got the size, he matches Jon Jones's height. We know Jon struggles with guys who are around his height. He's got the boxing advantage against Jon Jones. Boxing is a weakness for Jon. And he's got the power. And because he's got the height and reach, he could get close to Jon, he could land. And because he's got the wrestling in his back pocket, it might be harder for Jon to just implement his wrestling, grappling game on Stipe. Like it might be harder for him to do that to Stipe. What he did to Gon, that path to victory may not be as clear against Miocic. But the problem is, we don't know how good Stipe is going to be off this layoff. And he's 42 years old, man. Like, he could come back and he could surprise people without a doubt. I don't want to count out Miocic. Miocic is a very, very dangerous man. But again, he hasn't shown us anything in the last few years. I mean, Jon hasn't either, but Jon fought more recently and he's coming off a dominant win. He's never lost, and pretty soon he's going to be 27-0. I can't pick Stipe to win this fight, man. I'm not going to be one of these people who goes for Stipe just to sound different or tries to act like he has a chance just to make it interesting. I mean, can Stipe outbox Jon Jones? Yes. Can he hurt Jon on the feet? Absolutely. I mean, he does have a chance. Anyone at this game has a chance. And it's the heavyweight division, but Jon Jones has way too many tools in his arsenal on the feet. And Jon Jones has fought so many styles throughout his career. He's fought the boxers, he's fought the heavy hitters, he's fought many guys who are his height, and even though they were close fights, he's came out on top. He's found ways to win and adapt against his hardest matchups. And I just feel like it's not going to be any different against Stipe Miocic. But what I will say about this fight, I have a weird feeling that the moment Jon faces any adversity, he might actually lose. Like, if Stipe hurts him, Stipe might finish him. If Stipe's winning rounds against Jon, but doesn't finish him, he might beat him by decision. I just get that feeling that if Jon starts to struggle in this fight like he did against Reyes and Gus, his luck might run out. But I don't think it's going to get to that point where there's like a losing edge for Jon in this fight. What I'm going to predict is going to happen in this matchup is because Stipe hasn't fought in a while, I think he's going to start this fight the way he did the Daniel Cormier second fight, where he started slow, looked bad early, but he kind of was able to build as the fight went on. He found the weakness in DC's breadbasket in the late rounds and finished him. But the problem is, Jon Jones is better than DC. He's not DC. He has weaknesses, but he doesn't have the same weaknesses as Cormier. And he's very good at hiding those weaknesses. Like, the weaknesses of Cormier are way more glaring than Jon Jones. Jon Jones has better defense than DC. That's facts. He doesn't have a weakness in body shots like Cormier. That's facts. His striking overall is better than Daniel Cormier's, and I think he's got better cardio than Daniel. He's not going to fade as the fight goes on. And when you're fighting Jon Jones, there's no room for falling behind because against Jon, there's no playing catch up with Jon Jones. If Jon has momentum on you early, there's no getting it back. You have to be winning from the get-go against Jon or you're not going to beat him. And I just think Jon is not going to give Stipe a chance to build in the fight or a chance to show anything, because against Jon, he's a lot more trickier to get a rhythm on or a read on. Jon is so good with the hand fighting, the hand trapping, which I think is going to make it hard for Stipe to work his boxing. And I think those oblique kicks are going to be there for Jon Jones, which are going to really affect Stipe in terms of trying to close the distance. I think Jon has better footwork. I think Jon is going to use calf kicks effectively in this fight against Stipe. I also got to factor in eye pokes. We know the success that Cormier had with eye pokes against Stipe Miocic. And I think Jon, who's notorious for eye pokes, is going to use hella eye pokes against Miocic, which is also going to hurt Stipe's chances of getting any momentum. He's going to get compromised early from an eye poke. The ref's going to pause the action, but Stipe is going to continue. But then he's not going to be able to see out of that eye. Jon's going to probably poke him again, which is going to make it worse. Jon's going to continue beating up that lead leg of Stipe with the calf kicks, with the inside kicks, the outside kicks. He's going to stomp at the knees, jab into the body, maybe land some hooks to the body. And maybe every time Stipe tries to go forward, I could see Jon, even if he doesn't take him down, I could see him still going for takedowns just to break the momentum of Stipe's pressure. Like, Stipe comes at him, Jon ducks under and clinches, or Jon ducks under and shoots for a double leg, and then Stipe has to worry about the takedown threat. I also think Jon Jones, I feel like he's going to do this thing that he always does where he kind of runs when you come at him. Like, he does that thing where he runs and circles out. He did that against DC. He did that against Dominic Reyes. He's going to do that to Stipe. It worked for Alistair Overeem, the whole running thing that he did. He's going to do that to Stipe, and I think that's really going to frustrate Stipe. It's going to really force Stipe to reset. It's not going to allow Stipe to get in a proper flow with his boxing. It's going to make it very difficult for him to time Jon Jones because Jon's going to be constantly circling, jogging away, and then also hand trapping. It's going to make it very hard for Stipe to make those reads to actually land an effective combo on Jon with the hands. Now, I could see Stipe landing uppercuts in this fight because Jon does dip his head a lot. He'll post and dip his head. And I do worry that Miocic might actually find an opening, like uppercut, hook combo. That's possible. He could rock Jon with that. He could finish Jon with that combo as well. But I feel like Jon's just going to get away with those tendencies that he has against Miocic. And I'm just going to predict that Jon is just going to break down his body and his legs and his eyes throughout this fight until the third round, and he's going to find a finish against Stipe. I'm going to predict this fight's going to be very similar to the Alexander Gustafsson fight, the second one, where he can't get takedowns early, but he's going to compromise Stipe in the early rounds with something, even if it's an illegal move like the eye pokes or a nut shot like he did against Gus. He's going to do something that's going to compromise Stipe, and then it's going to offset any chance Stipe may have going forward. And again, the calf kicks will be a problem. The oblique kicks to the knees will be a problem. And I just think Stipe won't be able to get anything going, and it's just going to be ongoing for him from round 1 to 2 until round 3. Where by the third round, I think Jone is going to have him softened up to the point where I think getting a takedown on Stipe will be easier. I think it will be easier to get Stipe down, and I think he will find a takedown against a compromised Miocic in round 3. And I'm going to say that he'll probably finish him on the ground, whether it be a submission or ground and pound, much like the Alexander Gustafsson fight. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he catches Stipe on the feet. That's also very likely as well. I also won't be surprised if Jon Jones surprises Miocic with like improved boxing. I don't know why every time I visualize this fight, I could see Jon's boxing somehow looking better than it's ever looked. But also, you got to factor in a lot of people talk about Jon Jones being slower at heavyweight, and he did look slower against Gon, but Jon, in his recent photos, is looking leaner. He's looking a lot thinner, and I feel like now, with this being his second heavyweight fight, we're going to see a Jon Jones who's properly acclimated to heavyweight. We're going to see a lighter, faster Jon Jones in this fight, who's going to be able to function like his former prime light heavyweight self in this fight against Stipe, which I think is also going to play to his advantage. So I'm going to go with Jon Jones, round 3 finish, probably on the ground. But, hey, don't be surprised if Jon Jones finds a head kick against Stipe. Cormier was landing some head kicks, but just barely grazed him with, like, the toe. Same with Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou landed a solid head kick that landed with the foot. If Jon Jones finds an opening for a high kick, whether it be from like the lead leg or the back or the rear leg, and he lands with the shin, it's over. Like Jon could very well set Stipe up with kicks to the body and legs to eventually find an opening for a head kick, like he did against Cormier. But either way, I'm feeling a third round finish. I think Stipe is going to get beat up in this fight, and it's going to be sad to watch. But it's just going to be another fight to remind us as to why Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. Fans will probably complain, though, and say this fight never should have happened. This is the lamb to the slaughter. This is the old man getting beat up. It should have been Aspinall, but it is what it is. I think Jon finishes Stipe, and whether he retires after, I don't know. Maybe he'll stick around and fight Aspinall, or maybe he's going to hold out for the Pereira fight. We're going to find out November 16th. But either way, I got Bones winning. I just can't pick against Bones. I just can't pick Jon to lose until the day it happens. Like, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. But with that being said, that's it for my predictions for UFC 309 in the Garden for Bones Miocic. Let me know your picks in the comment section down below. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and peace out.